Yeah, I'll react to that, sure.
200 AD. It had been barely a century and a half since the world's greatest empire first set foot in Britain. Battle after battle, the legions of Rome subdued this myth.
Hi guys, original lady. My name's Connor. I like to learn. Original link, top description, Discord below that. The link, hit on it. Let's learn. Apocalyptic downfall of Roman Britain history rhymes.
It had been barely a century and a half since the world's greatest empire first set foot in Britain. Battle after battle, the legions of Rome subdued this mythical island fortress. Big cities filled with elaborate amphitheaters, hippodromes, bathhouses, and every edifice known to Roman architecture gradually appeared all over Britain. Now, at the very turn of the 3rd century, the province is thriving.
That's Augustus.
Indeed, less impressive than Rome and Alexandria, Londinium
I'm making
and
that in
Aboracum
Minecraft.
still captivate the eye with their splendor. Latin and Celtic speech pervades the streets of the urban landscape. Lavish villas, no different than the ones a traveler would see in Tuscany or Capua, fill the British countryside. Even in the deep interior of the province, where Latin is still a foreign language, buildings have tiled roofs and households enjoy luxury items like wheel-turned pottery shipped from as far as Africa. Life in Roman Britannia is peaceful and somewhat detached from the mainland. Occasional raids of wild painted warriors from the north are the most significant inconvenience for the local populace. Yet a massive wall, built close to a century ago by Emperor Hadrian, provides security from the savage northern tribes. 500 AD. It had been barely a century since a governor appointed by Rome last resided in Britain. The empire that controlled these lands for over 350 years is now, at best, a corrupted memory. Hailing from the inhospitable peninsula of Jutland, hordes of seafaring nomads gradually settled the eastern coast of Britain. Far detached from their former prosperous past,
it's fascinating. So let me know if I'm wrong, guys. So before Rome, contacts the British Isles, before that is, the what you would call, I guess, native Britons. The term native anything is kind of a strange word. I guess like native Africans, native like Rift Valleyans. No, not even that. People move places, and anyways. So it's really like native British Isles people and Nordic people fighting for a long time, probably thousands and thousands of years before Roman contact. And then you have the Romans come in, who are more advanced than both native Britons and Nordic, Scandinavian, Nordic Viking people. And then Rome falls in the west, and Britain is kind of free again. And so now it's like the Franks in the former Roman area, in Gaul fighting, and the Britons fighting, and then the Nordic people fighting also. And then that's kind of what forms the British population. That makes sense? Did it?
Britain. Far detached from their former prosperous past, the remnants of the local Roman and Celtic population had quickly adopted the newcomers' Germanic language and pagan religion. Not a single inhabited city remains in these lands. Londinium and Aboracum are now ghost towns. The new Anglo-Saxon settlers live no differently than their kin back in Denmark. Life along the eastern coast is unforgiving. The land is infertile, famines are a regular sight, while raids and violent clashes are the norm. The ability to write and read is virtually non-existent, while the elaborate stone and concrete buildings have now been replaced by wooden shacks.
That's another fascinating thing in history, how it's not... History is never... Both in like long-term history and evolutionary terms, and also just human history. I shouldn't, but how it's not always linear. Not even linear. It's not always forward, and like the fact that people a few hundred years ago or 3 generations ago were living more advanced lives in more advanced societies than you are is a crazy concept that's hard to think about just like in our time scale, because we've been, progressing without a big civilized level collapse. And so it's hard to think about that.
Impressive Roman ruins mean nothing to these newcomers. For these hardy people know no luxury. The aqueducts, temples, and basilicas are no different than the mountains, forests, and hills. They are simply standing there, relics of a far-gone time. Perhaps the gods built them. Who knows? 540 AD. Sitting in a dimly lighted monastery chamber, a Britannic monk named Gildas tirelessly works on what would become the first preserved written source on post-Roman Britain. Highly inaccurate and full of slander against the petty kings of Britain, Gildas's manuscript is nonetheless of immense value. The title of this vital work is no less intriguing: On the Ruin and Conquest of Britain. While much of the native population on Britain's eastern coast submitted to the pagan newcomers, to the west along the shores of the Irish Sea, Britons and Romans refused to bend a knee. Home to numerous Britannic kingdoms, Western Britain eventually became a place of refuge for those who decided to flee from the scourge of the Saxons. These Celtic princedoms are now, ironically, the last remnants of Romanness on the island. Western Britain eventually became a place of refuge for those who decided to flee from the scourge of the Saxons. These Celtic princedoms are now, ironically, the last remnants of Romanness on the island.
Interesting.
Here, the memory of Rome still lives on. Aware of their home's former glory, the predominantly Christian nobility of Wales, Cornwall, and Western England resist the Anglo-Saxon onslaught. In his writings, Gildas tells the epic story of Roman and Celtic heroes who fought against the pagan barbarians. The name of one man captivates the interest of academics to this day.
Ethel?
Ambrosius Aurelianus.
Dang it.
A name that is as Roman as it gets, leading many to suggest that this individual may very well have been a descendant of an emperor. Ambrosius is credited with creating one of the first resistance movements on the island, setting the stage for a struggle that would culminate around 500 AD when Britons from all corners of the island met the Saxons near the present.
Man, that's just so cool. Like, this guy, could be a of the lineage of the Romans, and yet he's adapted to the non-Roman Britain. Oh, I'm not explaining this well, how cool this is to me. Rome is no longer in control, but he has Roman roots, and he is adapted to warfare in the British Isles post-Roman, and it's just fascinating.
AD, when Britons from all corners of the island met the Saxons near the present-day town of Bath. Facing each other close to a hill named Baden, the opposing men did not know they were the first to participate in a rivalry that would last for over 1,000 years. A feud that would end with the total subjugation of the island by the descendants of the pagan newcomers. For the time, though, fate favored the Celts, and the battle ended in a defeat for the Saxons. Later, chroniclers would attribute this Christian victory to none other than King Arthur himself. For a moment, peace and stability finally began appearing back on the impoverished island of Britain. But then, 536 AD. Dense dust clouds have been restlessly covering the sun for over a year. Crops fail, famine sets in, and a cold winter delivers the next blow to the island's impoverished population. Historians still argue about the cause of this worldwide environmental disaster. Believed to be the result of a massive volcanic eruption, This event likely caused civilizations from as far as the Americas to collapse.
Just because the ash
For the Christians of
blocked
6th century Britain, however,
the sun.
the reason behind this suffering was God's anger.
Of course.
Their kings and clergy's greed and decadence led to all
It's so crazy, and we would be believing the same stuff if we lived back then, all right? And vice versa. But how it's such a strong force, right? Like religion and gods and theology. It's such a strong force in our brains that all of our mathematical, logical thinking and all other like ways of life, like whether it's like making weapons or new forms of food, technology to get food, it's like, all right, trial and error. That didn't work. Let's get this. Ooh, these bow and arrows don't shoot as well here. But when talking about like things we can't understand, that logical thinking goes out the window. It's like how is it that nobody like realized the inconsistency that like, wait, we did everything but it didn't work this time, and no one's like, hey, maybe that doesn't really it's just really fascinating how people kind of let, you know what I mean? And they're much, less knowledgeable of the world around them, so they're going to be more gullible.
all of this. The natural disaster, the invasion of the Anglo-Saxons, and then, when everyone expected it the least, the spread of a deadly disease. Around 541, the infamous Black Death made its first appearance.
I didn't know
An
that.
infection that would torment the world for a millennium to come. Britain's population was on its knees. Its people witnessed one of the most apocalyptic downfalls in human history. Now, even heroes like Ambrosius or King Arthur can't save them. History has repeatedly shown that disasters often pave the road for future growth. As the 6th century progressed, the plague gradually diminished, the weather returned to its normal state, and
I thought about that. It's a morbid thought, and it's kind of like, but it's a fact. It's almost like diseases are a way of like culling a population of animals, where diseases are going to kill off all of the weakest people. The old, the more susceptible to diseases. And so then you're going to be that'll create an evolutionary bottleneck where I feel like the future generations after the Black Death were probably, inherited those healthy traits from the people who survived. So, and it probably would have, lessened, burdened. I mean, I'm sure a lot of very, healthy young men and women survived, and a lot of their things that held them down before, like parents, all passed, and so it must just start a domino effect.
squabbles between the multiple petty kingdoms on the island resumed. After a century of disastrous downfall, the anticipated period of recovery finally began. Thanks for sticking around till the end. This channel exists thanks to the generous support of our patrons. The production of these videos takes a tremendous amount of time and resources, so if you wish, you can become a
I'd like to watch this.
The British
That was a great video. Great channel. I'm subscribed, right? No, I'm not. Subscribe. Really cool video, guys. Really good video. Like that. Maybe the best video on British history. It was only 8 minutes long. There are some other other videos I've watched that were longer, but me personally, it was very easy for me to understand and grasp. So that was good. I want to watch this one next. Love y'all. Hope you're doing well. If not, chin up. Keep it up. You'll be good soon. Don't worry. Bye, guys.